Got it. Okay, welcome everybody. I am so excited for our session today. We're going to learn about horses. And, some of you had the luck to go visit Michelle in action earlier this year, but a lot of us didn't. And so we're so excited to have her with us today. And I'm going to hand it over to Rafi Sarafian, and he is going to introduce our speaker, Michelle.
Yeah, hello everyone. I was one of the one who didn't make it. So instead, I started conversations with Michelle, and as we were going through this conversation, I got so inspired and so enlightened, right? That's the title, Enlightened Leadership, that I thought, this should be those conversations and this type of topics should be shared with everybody, even when the horses are not here, right? So Michelle Fellers is the founder of Epuna Guide LLC, equine inspired coaching and personal development. She specializes in consensual leadership development, emotional intelligence, and holistic life coaching. She's very passionate about empowering others on their personal journey to a long, healthy, and passionate life. So she has 20 years of studying holistic health, neuro-linguistic programming, nearly a lifetime of nonverbal communication with horses, ICF certified coach, and equine assisted personal development coach, along with 20 years of corporate business setup. She has intertwined various tools and techniques which can truly enrich our connection to self, allowing people to transform limiting beliefs and unhealthy habits to create self-awareness and self-confidence. So hopefully you guys are excited. I am already.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here with all of you, and I miss you too. I'm glad I've gotten to see you on Zoom since I moved to Washington. But I'm excited to be here with you today and share a bit of what I do in the field with the horses. And so technology is not always my friend, but I'm hoping that it is my friend today and sharing with all of you. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're up to today. It is an hour, and that's seemingly short to me, so I might really move through material fairly quickly. So I apologize if some of it seems kind of quick, but we're going to touch on the 5 elements of leading with grace, as I call it. And so those 5 elements we'll touch on a little bit, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into the element of mutual respect, building trust, and really connecting with our 3 brain centers. So the acronym GRACE stands for grace and mutual respect. R is for resilience and emotional and energetic balance. A is for authentic power and heart intelligence. And C is for consensual leadership and conscious connection. And E is for empowering and involving in service to higher goals. And so we're going to connect with horse wisdom today and the spirit of Equus, even though we aren't out in the field with them. So horses are innate teachers when it comes to really living in their power and their authentic space, and bringing that grace, so strength, but yet in a graceful way, if that makes sense. They use their entire body and all 6 of their senses to interpret their entire environment. And that's where we can learn so much, as being self-aware and environmentally aware of what's around us and how it's impacting us. And they live in the present moment, like this moment and this moment and this moment, with full awareness, because that's literally what keeps them alive. They're a prey animal, so they need to not only see what's happening, and we base a lot on language, although 10% of what we actually communicate is language. 90% is other things, which we'll talk about today. And so those horses really utilize more of that much more than a 90%, because they aren't a whole lot vocal, although they do have some vocal. So that body language and the energy that is being transferred back and forth is where we can learn so much from them. And they don't carry a lot of baggage, so they live in the moment. And then the phrase I love using is something comes along, they make a choice, they move along and they go back to grazing. So how great if it would be if we could go back to grazing more often, right? Once we moved through something. So those are the things we're going to really tap into. It really creates a whole enlightened perspective, I believe, and innovative ways of leading and dancing in life. Really enhancing our relationships with authentic and clear communication, creating adaptability, getting curious, and more conscious choice instead of fight or flight or in reaction, which I know right now there's so much stress and anxiety going on that tends to be a place where people are being more reactive versus conscious choice. Resolving our conflicts with grace and ease, connecting to our authentic power, source, and more of our free spirit, leading with a socio-sensual awareness and co-creating. So we're going to dive into that mutual respect side. And there's really some interesting, well, it's based around horses. I'll tell you a few stories about my horses and some other coaches and people that I work with in this area have really come across. And one of them is the body's automatic response of proximity, right? So we can feel if someone walks up behind us, or we might walk into a room where there's no one there now, but a few moments ago there was a debate going on with raised energy and emotions, if you will. Could be anger, and you walk in and you kind of feel that residual still. So that's our life energy, our environmental energy, and the impact of what that carries in our daily life is really important to notice and be aware of that. A lot of people are quite sensitive to feeling these emotions and energy spaces, but they don't really realize it. And so they're picking up on emotions and energy that may not necessarily be theirs, but they don't understand that. So, depression comes in, and high anxiety comes in, and stress comes in. And it may be something that they're feeling from the outside impact versus coming within. And so there's a couple ways that we can play with this and understand this and learn with this. Now, a few of you who did get to go with me with the horses last summer, Greta, we did this exercise, human to human. And I apologize, I had a video ready to roll, but for some reason it's not rolling right now. So really understanding walking into someone's space. And this is important in the workplace. So often we just charge up to someone's desk, and some people who are highly sensitive, they already start to put up a wall because just you coming in there without coming in a soft way and checking in actually in a way that's more in body language and feel, and kind of not encroaching someone's space so harshly, but giving it a few moments and taking a feel of where that person is. And just like in coaching, we're taught, right, to meet them where they are. Well, what if we took it one step further, meet them where they are energetically or emotionally in the moment, right? And then really connect at that space and continue forward from there. And so that's what I'm really talking about. I do have a video where we're going to be with the horses, and I'll show some of that with the horse. But we can do that human to human. And so I would almost ask you to kind of start noticing that a bit more. And we're going to do an exercise here in just a little bit for us to tap into our body a bit more and be a little bit more aware. And so, I feel like this is important in our world today. It's very fast pace of change right now. There's a lot of anxiety, even opposition, right? And so if we could help ourselves and others re-enter, because now as we're hopefully coming out of restrictions with COVID and opening back up, I already am hearing that there are issues where people are, they've been so far out of being intermixed physically in society, that they're struggling getting back out there and feeling comfortable and confident. And so I'm wondering, and maybe you guys in the chat box, or you could raise your hand for a moment, could share some of the top issues, maybe with your family or your clients currently in relation to re-entering after COVID. Does anybody have some quick shares for me?
Well,
Nana?
I went to a wedding this weekend, and what was actually strange is I almost didn't recognize some people. They
Mm.
look different. Literally, like physically, they look different, not just energetically. But I think, it did take a couple of minutes to just, have normal dialogue. It felt almost forced in the beginning.
Yeah.
But that's what I'll share.
Yeah, there's a few things in the chat here. Well, one was more of a clarifying on vaccines or masks or politics. Some of my clients are already back in the office without masks. I'm nervous about going back into that environment. Still nervous about being around people, especially without masks. I guess Saturday Night Live had a skit on this. I didn't see it, on how awkward it will be. But I know my experience, I just did a tour, like I traveled for the last month. And I know that as the airport started getting really crowded and people started, it was just kind of daunting to be in an airport with people so close together, even with a mask on. So it's just that weirdness. And then I'll sit by someone and they'll go, gosh, I'm just over it, over masks. So it's just, everyone's sort of got their different story that they're bringing into it. Scott says, I live in a senior community where people have been very fearful and they're very reluctant to venture out. So I think you're getting some people who are just over it and some people who are really nervous.
Yeah, there seems to be definitely two ends of the pendulum. And then I know there's a lot in the middle too. And so I feel like some of this that we'll go over today can start to help. I think starting with our mindset and really being able to check in with our body and understanding the messages that we're getting from our own intuition as to where maybe this fear is coming from. And where the vulnerability of getting back out into society is coming from, and having some tools to work with that. So, and even beyond that, we're just in this time where we're so reliant, and really in this last year, computers, internet, cell phones, social media, the fact that all of kind of the multimedia encourages, excessive reliance on language and more surface appearances rather than getting more a little bit more heartfelt with people. And this type of thing is really where we're kind of getting mesmerized with this surface instead of being, and we're almost getting fearful of getting more in touch at that heart center, that heart level. And like I said earlier, 10% of our communication is truly verbal. So what's happening to that 90% when we're doing computers and internet and cell phones? We're losing like this mass amount of emotional connection, our actual context when you're texting or something of that nature, that true connection, right? And just subtle energetic exchanges are grossly being downplayed right now in that realm, and possibly, well, I'm pretty sure there's lots of miscommunication happening, and so that's just it's to a point where people are losing their ability to like fully function in this space and be authentic in this space. So what do the horses have to share with us in this? Well, again, they live in the moment. And so they model strengths that are often referred to as feminine values, such as cooperation over competition, relationship over territory, responsiveness over strategy, emotion and intuition over logic, and process over goal. So really being that more creative side, if you will, versus this very logical cut and dry side. Neurolinguistics, the three brain theory, and institutions like HeartMath, like have been really super instrumental in showing us scientifically how energy inflects and works, and how we actually have these three brain centers, and also the difference between implicit and explicit. So implicit knowing versus explicit knowledge is a huge space for learning and actually for creating transformation in ourselves and our clients. So more implicit knowing is that experiential learning, where we're coming up with the answer from the inside, the experience in which we learn something about ourselves. Whereas explicit knowledge is more of us learning in a classroom or that type of thing. So being in alignment with all three centers, our head, heart, and gut, is what really helps us create that emotional balance and be more internally authentic and be able to follow our inner guidance. So with experiential coaching, we're allowing for that implicit knowledge to come forth and actually assimilate in the body and the mind gut in a visceral way. So we get to lock in transformation that way. So then again, you get either the work that we're doing here helps us with that. Literally in the field, we get to practice these new awarenesses, and the horses mirror their behavior in response to where we are in being in alignment or not. So it's a really beautiful thing. And the reflection they're giving us is immediate feedback. It's like right now. And so that gives us a chance to work right now on getting curious on if we shift something going on with ourselves, how does it shift the other being? And so it gets to be a playground, if you will. And you can do this with humans and human to human. Sometimes we get caught up in our head that there's all these filters and things that other people are filtering you through, and that the feedback is different. Whereas with a horse, there's not a lot of filters for them. They're just simply authentically reacting in the moment or acting in the moment in that mirror effect, if that makes sense. So I'm curious, I know a few of you have been out with me, but has anyone else in the house right now worked with horses in the way that I'm talking about, or in any capacity? Just kind of raise your hand for the fun of it. No, a lot of no's, no. Okay, so I've got a really fun story to go over with you. And it's all about the body's automatic response of proximity, and what I also call life energy and our environmental energy. And there was a stallion named Merlin. He came to someone, actually one of the coaches that I work with. She writes, she's a beautiful, she's got some beautiful books and just amazing information that she's been able to take and verbalize really well. And she's done a lot of research too. So she had this stallion come to her. He was a stallion that was considered very, very highly dangerous. Probably would have been put down if she didn't take him. But she took him in and said, you know, I'll do my best with him. He was very reactive to people and had become mean in most people's due respect, right? So she said, okay, I'm going to put him in a nice stall, get him really comfortable, and then I'm going to start slowly moving towards him and have him begin to know me and get to trust me and things like that. Well, what she found is she could only get in the beginning like 10 feet away, and he would start to get really agitated. So she said, okay, I'll just work with him a couple 10, 15 minutes every day, and I'll just keep moving myself in. And so she did that, but she ended up getting to about 5 feet away from him, and she couldn't surpass that field of getting close into him. And so she wasn't sure what to do. And so she was standing there, just being with him. And she felt something on her shoulder. So she kind of raised her arm up to feel what was going on. And she noticed that when she did that, the horse actually moved. And she was like, well, that's interesting. And so she started playing with some more movements just at 5 feet. And he actually started to move in ways that if you were actually up close to him and you were doing that, your typical horse would move. Very interesting. And then there's some massage moves that you can use with horses that calm them down and work with their nervous system. And so she started using those moves, but she was doing it in the air versus right up to him. And he started responding in all the ways that if she had been physically touching him, that he would have responded in. So what she found out is that proximity of response, that energy field for him was very strong outside of his body, and still relayed the information to his body the same as our physical touch. And so she thought, let me try this with other horses. And she was finding that they were responding at different spaces away from their bodies, and started understanding that even humans those who were highly sensitive can feel the touch and the energy without it necessarily being right on their body, in the impact that it had when we encroach someone's space, even before they're kind of ready for us to encroach our space. And so this was pretty impactful, really, because if you start thinking and having a discussion about, if I was in someone's space who's highly sensitive and I was just coming right up into them, and now they are on sensory overload, if they reached out and hit me or bit me like a horse would, we'd probably put them away in jail or something, right? So they don't have that option. But if you think about people who maybe really excessively talk or have some kind of excessive ways of dealing in society, that we look at and go, wow, they're saying all this and they're going off, but they aren't actually listening to anything. These are actually reactions that help them cope with this overwhelm of too much space being invaded, if you will, too much of their space being invaded without other people knowing it or even them realizing it, right? So if someone had 2 or 5 feet, which my husband does, he's like, you're okay out there, 2 or 3 feet from me, until he gets to know you, and then you can come in. And if we aren't realizing this out there, then how much are we taking away, actually? Because those people aren't listening, they aren't learning, they aren't able to take in anything, because now they're simply guarding themselves unconsciously. And you think of children with ADD or ADHD, or what folks call oppositional defiance, these types of things. If you notice, a lot of times if we just back off and give them space, they can actually calm down and focus. And so it's really interesting to think about this. And right now I'm gonna, since I don't have the video to show this, I do have an exercise for us to start to get into our body, and notice what our bodies are sharing with us, more often than not, that we either don't pay attention to, or if we do, we don't give it much credit. So I just want to open up, maybe if anybody else has something to share in this realm, I would love to hear from you before we go into our exercise.
Yeah, Michelle, I was wondering how you would translate that into our virtual world right now, like crossing those boundaries. And obviously the distance is not there, but there are definitely some energies at play.
Yeah, you're talking when we're like on Zoom like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think actually, reading, which we'll do a little bit in the other video, starting to read facial, which I'm sure a lot of you as coaches, I believe that we tend to have the sensitivities, and over time we learn these sensitivities if we don't already kind of have them naturally. But to read more of the body language when you're here, because you can't always necessarily feel the energy as much, although I know there are times when you can. But reading the body language, even the coloring of your face, of your face can tell things. Holding tension in a jaw, those types of things is where you're going to be able to utilize this more, which is why I like smaller groups in Zoom, frankly, for the work that I do. Because yeah, normally I'm used to being person to person with them. But I've found with Zoom, in a larger group, it's hard to kind of keep an eye on everyone. But in a smaller group, you can start to get the feeling. You can see if people are breathing or if they're holding their breath. That's a tendency of stress or anxiety when we're holding our breath or breathing really shallow. So you can literally, work with your clients by watching them and then asking some clarifying questions to find out what's going on, based on what you're seeing. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, good question. That's really great. So I would like, what we're going to do, I'm going to explain the exercise just a little bit. I call this a body scan. And there'll be two parts to this body scan. Our first body scan is going to be where really it's just a baseline of where we're at. And the second one actually is going to be a word that brings in different types of emotions for different people. And if you could all help me, actually, would you type in a word to the chat that you have encountered that creates a lot of different meanings and emotions around it? Like power is one word where a lot of people have a different sense of what the word power means. And we're going to use a word from what you guys throw out there for me with the second body scan. Okay, so I'll let you guys type into the chat and do that while I describe a little bit more about this. So this is really to deepen our own self-awareness through physical and emotional sensations. It's not something that a lot of us do. It's not something we're taught. I feel like we should be. The idea is that we're day to day, we run into a situation where someone says something or does something and it triggers our emotional state. With the body scan, we can check in with our body, tap into our inner knowledge, and really find out a little bit more information about, what is happening with us. And are we reacting in a way that's appropriate or inappropriate? How might we manage this state that we've come into? And how often does this certain type of activity? Sometimes we find ourselves in a pattern where certain activities or things trigger us, right? And so if we could pull a little more information intuitively, internally, this could really help us moving forward. So the body has so much more to offer us when we tune in, listen to it, and trust the messages. It's almost like having a reunion with your body, if you will. So let's see, what words do we have in the chat?
Would you like me to read them to you?
Oh, I'm kind of scanning
You see
through
them.
them real quick. Let's see, vulnerability. Yep. Success. Yeah, that has a different meaning for a lot of people. Judgment, integrity. Yeah, those are great. Diversity. Those are super great. Can't, I like that. Let's see. Let's take a vote. Everybody look at the chat and let's take a quick vote on what word we all want to play with today. How about let's see. What do you guys think? Throw one out there to me.
Someone mentioned integrity.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Anybody else got a top pick out of those?
There were two respect too.
Respect. Well, that's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. There's 2 votes for that.
Oh, okay. Let's use respect.
Yep, we've got a 3rd vote for respect. So I think that's
Okay.
the one.
All right. So that's the word we're going to use. And let's see. So I want everybody to just sit up tall in your chair, put your feet on the floor. Let's take 2 deep breaths together. And we're going to start at the top of our head. And in this first body scan, you'll learn how to do it. And also in this body scan, it's like I said, it's just noticing. We're not shifting anything or changing anything. We're literally just noticing our body. Okay, so we're going to go through this fairly quickly. And so I would say take a soft gaze or close your eyes. And let's just start at the top of our head. Let's drop into the top of our head. Let's notice what's behind our eyes. Let's notice our ears, notice our jaw. There may be sensations, there may be colors. You may notice words. And let's just keep dropping down now to the base of your skull and down into your throat space, and down each vertebrae of your neck. Again, just noticing, not really shifting anything. And down into your shoulders and your chest and your lungs. Really just noticing what's here. Noticing if there's tension, noticing where your shoulders up high or low. Don't really need to adjust anything. Dropping down each vertebrae down your back into the middle of your back. Now to your solar plexus, belly button, power source, internal organs. Just noticing what's here. And just letting what's here be, allowing it to come forth. Dropping a little bit further down the spine and into the hip space. Again, just dropping a little bit further to that tailbone. Noticing any sensations, allowing them to be. And let's drop down into our thighs and our knees and the lower leg, ankles, feet on the floor. Notice how they are on the floor. Notice your heels and your toes. If there's any more weight on one or the other foot. Let's come back up the top of your feet, back up to your ankles. Let's come all the way back up to your shoulders. And notice as you move down your arms, to your elbows, to your fingertips. Again, just noticing. And if there is a space in your body that tended to show up more than the others. I invite you to go into this space of your body and just breathe into it. And see how that reflects back to you. And just stay here for another couple seconds. And now I invite you to open your eyes and come back to me. Does anybody have a share in regards to, did they have any sensation that kind of showed up stronger than the rest of the body? Okay, so this is a baseline. Okay, now I'm going to have you do one more. I'm going to have you drop in and do this baseline, just get connected. And then I'm going to say our word. And then I want you to check in with your body and literally ask it if it has an opinion about this word. And then notice in your body anything that comes up, any sensations. And then I'm going to have you breathe into that. So we'll get started now. Go ahead, drop in. I'm going to give you a few seconds to just tap into your body. And now, how does respect land? What is your body's opinion of the word respect? And breathe into that. Breathe oxygen in. You can ask for a message and ask it for one clarifying message at a time, not to inundate you. Breathe into it, allow it, expand it. Things come to us funny. The body is very creative. It might be more like an art form. That's okay. You just get curious and allow it. Okay, and I'm gonna invite you to come on back to me. I always offer an opportunity to really share or not share. And this is sometimes an opportunity for some people to build trust and move forward and be more forthright in groups or society. And sometimes that doesn't happen right away. And then persons who are not sharing are always learning from the sharing that is occurring, as we know, as coaches. So I do invite someone to share what their experience was just now with respect. And
This is Lois. So right away, I felt my posture get more upright and straighter when I started focusing on respect. And then when you asked about the message, what came to me was respect for myself and also others.
nice. Very good. Great.
I'll
Yeah.
share. Sorry.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yes. So thank you, Lois, for saying that. I felt the same to start. I felt my posture strengthen. My back went straight. My shoulders came up. And then when you asked the question, I felt a kind of a pressure on my hips that that caused me to at least reflect on why. I don't know the answer yet, but I felt the pressure that could be a little bit painful, that could be sending a message somewhere about respect.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Cynthia. And the beauty about this is the more we tune into our bodies and truly listen to it and trust it, the more we can find those answers. And they can come sometimes a lot quicker to us too, and really give us some valuable information in a given moment or a given time and space. So thank you. That's awesome.
We also had a nice share in chat from Rena, who said, when you said the word respect, I felt an immediate tightening around my heart, followed by the message, respect comes from love, which I thought was really nice.
Oh yeah, see, that's great. So you see how there's kind of a pattern there where she's talking about respect, or the heart space, and that's in the body where the feeling and sensation was coming from, the message was coming from. So that's kind of key here. And the hips could have, you know, a whole nother space in which, and that's kind of your sacral space. So you could revisit that sacral space there, in that hip space. It's almost, since you're a female, that's a feminine space for you. You know, there could be a couple different messages there. And what's also very important when we're starting to ask for messages is really, really ask for one message at a time. We don't need to be inundated by too much at any given time, and that it's clear and concise. And you'll be surprised how your intuition and your internal messaging and guidance system can speak up to you. Is there someone else who will share? Rafi, how did it go for you?
Yeah, I don't know how to interpret what happened to me, but since you started, I saw a green light. I don't know what it means, and the green light was there all the time. So,
well, when you look at energy spaces and if you talk about chakra centers, green is typically a heart space color. So not sure if that ties in for you, but again, I would say go back, you know, and visit that again. And of course we can shift these words. And then you can also, if something's coming up in your day-to-day or something that might be reoccurring, it's a great way to check in with yourself. Okay,
Yeah,
so go ahead, Naheed.
Oh, I was just going to say, I had an interesting experience too, where I felt it up in my brain, but then I also felt like I don't really like using the word respect. It feels like a catch-all word for me. So then I did replace the word with the word I use instead of respect, which is honor. And then I completely felt a lot of deepness down in my heart. So it's interesting how just saying a different word showed up in a different place in my body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like language is that way. I feel like that's key to kind of what I was saying earlier on, is words they can mean so much different from one person to another, right? And one word like that could shut you down, which it kind of did. And you shifted with a different word, right? And so when we're communicating with people, especially when there is opposition going on and there's some conflict going on, and it can just elevate that opposition. Whereas if we can check in a little bit more on more of an energetic level and then match to that and then rework from there and start getting curious about what different words and labels I think are what's driving us all apart right now, is labels, and they're being used in so many different ways right now. And you know, when you, especially politics, you say I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, wow, you could probably have a whole room of people tell you what that meant to them and what that meant that that person, who they are. And I don't think that's correct. That person can be completely opposite of what that one word just labeled them. And so, languaging and words are very powerful. And as coaches, we know that we want to clarify a lot because of that. But I think this just brings it maybe to another level of being able to really check in with the body at a deeper level and get more messages about the words and the languaging and the situation. So we're going to roll a video clip, and this is going to show a bit of this automatic response that we're talking about. It's going to show about the spatial awareness, and it's also going to be based around connecting the head, heart, and gut, and being authentic with those three power sources, or three brain centers, if you will. There's a lot of research now that the brain matter that we have in our brain is also in our intestines, and it also is in our heart. And so there's so much more information coming from our gut to our brain and from our heart space to our brain than there is the other direction. So the brain, they're finding out, is much more of like the computer. It's receiving information and then shooting it back out where necessary. So really starting to tap into those centers again and receiving information from them and not shutting them down is a huge space that I think we can teach others, and we can remember to do that for ourselves. And the horses are so highly sensitive, and their heart is actually 6 times bigger in relation in their body than ours is. So they emit a lot of heart energy. And I think that's why a lot of women are attracted to them, because that's a little bit more in the female tribal community space. And we're all kind of, I feel like, horses typically have a draw to them, and a lot of people can't explain why. I believe that definitely that larger heart space, and where they're constantly being congruent, is probably a big draw for humans to be drawn to them. And so we're going to show some clips here where we're playing a bit with that energy field and noticing the horse. So notice their eyes, notice their ears, notice their jaws, notice their muscles. Are they tense? It might be a little choppy. That might be to our advantage or not, because it might kind of slow it down into little snips so you can take a better look at the body. Okay. You can look more at the horse, but notice what the human is doing in relation. And so that's what I invite you to do with this clip. I might have, let's see, you have it loaded up and ready.
Yeah, you ready for me to go?
We'll see, if it's going to if a delay reaction is going to help us or not.
Okay, here we go.
Whatever you feel. Next, we'll interact with a horse in spatial awareness.
And I might talk over some of this.
Ashlyn respects the horse's space and rocks back and gives her that mutual respect and waits for the invite of connection. Watch the horse's facial expressions and ears. Here, the horse is not connecting with Ashlyn quite so much. There is some distance. Do you have any ideas of why this might be? asked Joe to meet Penny for the first time without,
Okay, go ahead and pause, will you?
You want me to pause the video?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, with that video, did anybody catch kind of the body language of the horse and the body language of the human? And do you have some thoughts around that?
Whoever wants to talk, just go ahead and turn off your mute and talk, and because I can't see the chat.
To me, it seemed like the Ashley, I think, she
Ashley.
wasn't open.
Mhm.
Like at one point, she was holding her hands shut, and it seemed like the horse was just like hesitant to engage with her.
Yeah, and so closed body like that can tend to let us believe there might have been some anxiety on her part. Yeah, and which there was. She was feeling anxiety about going in with the horse. She hasn't really been around horses much. And so the horse was kind of off, and closing herself off also. This horse's name is Penny. So Penny was closed off also. So that's great noticing. So let's move forward with this clip and see what we see here.
right, see, you were already consciously caring about her, and she knew that. Now, let's see what it looks like to dance with our head, heart, and gut with a horse. Here I asked Joe to connect with his heart space. You can see that she is in connection with him and aware of him. Although there's not a lot of direction happening. So she's just hanging out doing what she likes and does. Here I have asked Joe to use the 3 brain centers, align them and dance in the moment with them, using the mind and focus with intention, using the heart space for compassion and curiosity, and using the gut and the power source of the solar plexus and intuition to guide him. What shifts do you see in the horse different than the last clip? Now that Joe is dancing in the moment with his head, heart, and gut.
That was it.
Okay, perfect. It worked pretty good. So what did you guys see different in that one? And neither one of these folks have worked with horses really before, so just so you know that.
The horse was following Joe once he got into all of his centers and was doing the dance in the moment thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if you noticed when he was in the heart space, it was very much that. She knew that it was kind of just an open space of just being, connecting at the heart, but didn't necessarily, even though he was walking and he was trying to move her around, she was just like, hey, well, that's really great. We can just be here, right? You know, and his compassion says, yeah, I'm not really moving you forward if that's what you really want to do. So then when we ask him to actually have a focus and an intention and use the power source to get the job done, but still having the compassion of working with the other being and seeing what they need in the moment, and being self-aware at that point, and being aware of the other being or beings if you're in a group, and having that awareness to be able to shift and dance between those different centers, and using what you need to do to inspire that other to move with you, which is then what you got to see. And you notice her attention was on him the whole entire time, where with Ashlyn, she would actually look away, and she was trying to actually evade that feeling of anxiety that didn't make her feel good. Where with him, she walked right up to him, stayed really connected to him. She even wanted to move her body around so he could get her itchy, scratchy spots that she loves to have someone work with. He didn't really know that, but that was what part of what she was up to. So, you know, I just want to see if anybody else has something to share, kind of in conclusion. I know we're getting close to our time up, and I want to honor everybody's time. So I would love to hear in response of, really, if we pull all of these things together, we get to have some real gifts for ourselves, as coaches or as human beings in our family, to move forward with a few tools. Now, there is a lot more tools. Can't fit them into an hour. I wish I could. And I will be having live interaction here at our place now. So I'm excited for that. And I wanted to share that. But really bringing it all back around to that mutual respect for ourselves and others, just understanding our own boundaries, and that self-awareness and the outside awareness, I believe is key to all of us for our own well-being, but to share that out into the world. So I had a lovely time with all of you. And if anybody has a closing word, maybe your word for the day after that, that would be fun. Throw it in the chat, your word for the day. And thank you so much, everybody.
So before we go, Michelle, I actually had a couple of questions. The first question is, do you have people go in with the horses and not say any words, or do you leave them a choice to say words?
It just depends on we have different exercises that we do, and in what the teachings are, and the knowledge that we're gleaming on how we do the different exercises. There's a lot of different ways that we do it. So sometimes I let people just go in and just be with the horse, whatever that looks like for them. We have another one that's called the Heart's Desire. And we use the body scan on the outside, and then we use the body scan to connect with the horse. And then there is like a word or something in the heart's desire that wants to come forth, and they'll go in with the horse and work with that. When we do teamwork, we'll set up kind of like obstacle courses, and we'll have like a group of people plus a horse and another group of people plus a horse. And they'll take a horse through an obstacle, the whole entire group working as a team, so that you get to know your teammates at a better level and understand their strengths and weaknesses, and defaults and things like that. But have that mirror effect of that horse right there, mirroring back not only how an individual may be dealing with the situation, but how the group is now dealing with the situation. So it's pretty dynamic, actually. I love doing group work. But I mean, you can take it from one end of leadership in an organization to spiritual work, if you will. So there's quite a gamut of what you can do with it, and it can go from really just nourishing all the way to being much more technical, like the 5 rules of the herder. So we go back to this leadership. Horses have a very much of a society where they each have a job in their herd. And when we get to learn more about those roles and responsibilities in a herd, it relates back to us. So it's really interesting to study non-predatory leadership, as opposed to what I call, we're much more of a dominant predatory space, typically in the corporate world. So when you start to match up a non-predatory roles and responsibilities, it's pretty powerful. So, and to understand like a dominant has an immature dominant and a mature dominant. There's all the different roles, but what do they look like when they're mature in that role or immature in that role? So where can you grow in your weaks and strengths?
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. It's been so wonderful to have you. And you're going to be coming down. Are you going to be doing any in-person sessions down here in South Orange County again, or in
I
Orange
will.
County?
Yeah,
So
I've
you'll
been
let us
down.
know when that happens.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much. I would love to see your faces live for real.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for coming. It has been wonderful. We want to honor all your time. You've had some wonderful comments in the chat, Michelle. You've got words like inspired and curious in here for final words. And we really appreciate you bringing your horses and your horse wisdom to us. And I know that I really hope that next time there's an opportunity that I can join you live, because I really would love, I'm just dying to get in there with the horses and just and experience them. It sounds really exciting to me.
Yeah, I would love to go down and do it again like I got to do with you guys last summer, or I guess it was spring maybe.
Spring, yeah.
Beautiful, yeah. And I do have a worksheet that I'll send out. Maybe Rafi will help me get it out to you guys after this. So I'll send you a worksheet, and I just hope you all have a beautiful week. Thank you so much.
All right, great. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Very much.